Hello, welcome back to Bible Stories. I'm Jonas.
I'm Noelia.
And we're going to be looking today at Genesis chapter 6 verse 9 all the way to chapter 9 verse 17, Noah and the Ark. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more about Noah and the Ark and the many more stories that we'll be talking about here in this Bible Stories study kind of thing we're doing, 625 Sam Houston. Come over and we're waiting for you right here. But let's get started. Noah was a man who did what was right and obeyed God. He had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Noé era un hombre que hacía lo correcto y obedecía a Dios. Tuvo 3 hijos, Sem, Ham, y Japhet.
Mm-hmm. And we got some pre-podcast commentary beforehand to get some numbers together, so we'll go mentioning those as we go through the story. In this time Noah was first introduced, he was about 500 years old. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So he was 500 years old this time, 3 sons, and everyone else who was disobeying God. People were treating each other very badly.
Sin embargo, los demás desobedecían a Dios.
God saw that the people he had created had become very wicked and violent.
Dios vio que la gente que él creó se habían convertido en malvados y violentos.
God told Noah he was going to put an end to this wickedness by sending a flood to cover the earth, but Noah and his family would be spared.
Dios le dijo a Noé que pondría fin a esa maldad enviando una inundación que cubriría toda la tierra, pero Noé y su familia se salvarían.
Noah was given instructions to build a big ark out of wood and cover it in waterproof pitch. It was going to be 450 feet, 135 meters long, 75 feet, 23 meters wide, and 45 feet, 14 meters high. It would have 3 decks divided into rooms and a roof with a gap underneath for air to get in. It would have 1 door on the side.
Le dio instrucciones a Noé para construir un gran arca de madera y que la cubriera con brea y prueba de agua. Sería ancho 450 pies, 135 metros de largo, 75 pies, 23 metros y 45 pies, 14 metros de altura. Tendría 3 cubiertas divididas en habitaciones y un techo con un hueco debajo para que el aire circule. Tendría una puerta en el lado.
I wonder, because it never rained before, did their houses not have roofs?
I don't know. Nobody knows, I guess.
Nobody
Yes.
knows. At once, Noah and his sons started to build the huge box-shaped boat.
Noé y sus hijos comenzaron a construir el enorme barco en forma de caja.
Box-shaped. Ark means box in the old translations. So not a boat as we tend to think of it. The wicked people around wondered what Noah and his sons were doing.
La gente malvada se preguntaba qué estaban haciendo Noé y sus hijos.
When the ark was ready, God told Noah the flood would be coming in 7 days' time. Noah, his 3 sons, and their wives were told to take their possessions aboard. They stored food for the animals coming aboard too.
Cuando el arca estaba lista, Dios le dijo a Noé que el diluvio vendría en 7 días. Noé le pidió a sus 3 hijos y sus esposas que trajeran sus posesiones a bordo. Ellos almacenaron alimentos para los animales que vendrían a bordo también.
So how many people would that be in total in the ark? Like 8?
8.
Okay.
Exactly 8.
8 people. Everybody
8
else.
personas en total estaban en el arca.
Mm-hmm.
Y también vimos los números acerca de la construcción,
Mhm.
que se cree que la construcción tardó de 60 a 70 años hasta 100 años,
Mhm.
porque cuando Noé entró en el arca, él tenía 600 años de edad.
Mhm. Yeah, so it's believed that it took about anywhere from 60 to 100 years for the ark to be built, because when we first hear of Noah in the Bible, he was 500 years old with all his kids, and then when he starts building the Bible and he gets the message from God, he is 600 years old. So there's 100 years in between
Cuando el
there.
arca está terminada, tiene 600 años.
And when the ark is completed, he has 600 years. So not when it starts, it's when it's completed.
Between this,
In between all of this, there's about 100 years,
100 años.
and that's speculated.
Yeah.
When the ark was ready, 7 pairs of each clean animal and bird, one male, the other female, were put into the ark. 2 of every unclean animal were also taken on board. Unclean animals were those such as lizards, moles, pigs, owls, mice, ferrets, and ravens, which you can see in Leviticus 11 and Deuteronomy 14.
7 parejas de cada animal limpio y de aves un macho, la otra hembra. Se pusieron en el arca, 2 de cada animal impuro. También fueron tenidas en cuenta. Animales impuros fueron aquellos que como lagartos, lunares, cerdos, búhos, ratones, hurones y cuervos. Véase Levítico 11, Deuteronomio 14.
God then closed the door of the ark, and the rain began to fall. For 40 days it rained heavily.
Dios cerró la puerta del arca y la lluvia comenzó a caer. Durante 40 días llovió fuertemente.
Do the scriptures specifically state that it would only rain after he closed the doors? Or just
Yeah,
that
he
it
did.
would rain?
Yeah, it did not rain until after God closed the doors.
But did God warn him of that? Or just say, it'll rain, build an ark, and be prepared?
It's hard to know exactly how he would have explained rain to him, because he had never seen or heard of it before.
Right.
He might have said water's going to come out of the sky or something. So
It's,
how much Noah knew is not real clear. However, in Hebrews 11, it tells us by faith he built the ark.
Mhm.
Gênesis 7, verso 6, diz que Noé tinha 600 anos quando o dilúvio das águas vino sobre a terra, e por causa das águas do dilúvio entrou Noé al arca e com ele seus filhos. Creio que foi como ao mesmo tempo. Empezou a chover, entraram e Deus cerrou a porta para
I
que
get you.
outros não entrassem.
So it was most likely because of the water and the flood that they went into the ark,
Genesis 7,
and possibly
7.
God closed the door. That's Genesis 7:7.
Yes.
Okay, good to know.
Have we told anyone where they got the water from before then to water the plants and trees and everything?
Well, from these guys, well, it came out of
This-
the ground. It was a mist that rose up from the ground. We saw that in creation, in one of our stories that we saw before, which is interesting. As the waters rose, the ark began to float.
A medida que aumentaron las aguas, el arca comenzó a flotar.
The waters kept rising until they covered all the high mountains. Every living creature on land outside the ark was wiped out.
Las aguas seguían subiendo hasta cubrir todas las altas montañas. Todo animal de la tierra fuera del arca fue aniquilado.
Every living creature on land, so fish were probably fine because it was just water.
Right.
And it even kind of specifies that before it, clean animal and bird, not fish, was brought into the ark because they didn't need it.
Yes.
The water flooded the earth for 150 days, but those on board the ark were kept safe.
El agua inundó la tierra durante 150 días, pero las personas a bordo del arca se mantuvieron a salvo.
As the flood waters went down, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat.
A medida que el agua de la inundación bajó, el arca se posó en las montañas del Arat.
Do we know where that would be nowadays?
Yes, Mount Ararat is definitely known its location.
No?
They believe it's in Asia Minor area, but I
Mhm.
don't know for sure. There are a lot of people who look on Mount Ararat looking for, and they've had satellite views and other things flying over, looking for remnants of the ark. My personal opinion is that's long gone. Remnants are long gone.
All those wood, right? After 40 days, Noah sent out a raven, but it found nowhere to land.
Después de 40 días, Noé envió un cuervo, pero no encontró ningún lugar en la tierra donde posarse.
Then he sent out a dove. It flew around looking for land.
Luego envió una paloma. Esta voló en busca de tierra.
But it could find nowhere to perch and returned to the ark. Noah reached out his hand and brought it back into the ark.
Pero no encontró ningún sitio donde posarse y regresó al arca. Noé extendió la mano y la llevó de nuevo al arca.
7 days later, he sent out the dove again.
7 días más tarde envió a la paloma de nuevo.
And later that evening, it returned with a freshly plucked leaf. Noah knew the water was receding.
Más tarde esa noche regresó con una hoja recién arrancada. Noé supo que el agua estaba retrocediendo.
A week later, he sent out the dove a third time, but it did not return. Noah knew that the dove had found land.
Una semana más tarde envió la paloma por tercera vez y ésta no regresó. Noé supo que la paloma había encontrado tierra.
It's interesting he sent out a raven first,
Yeah?
and then all the other times it was a dove.
I wonder
Well, the
why.
raven
Didn't come.
didn't come back.
Yeah, interesting.
I don't know. It does.
Well, it just says, but it found nowhere to land.
Yeah,
So
but
let's
the
talk
paloma
about-
says it come back.
La urraca fue varias veces.
Mm,
Iba y venía, se me hace.
see?
See.
It's interesting. And we're coming now. Noah removed the roof of the ark and saw the land was drying out. 2 months later, the land was dry enough for Noah, his family, and the animals to leave the ark.
Noé quitó la cubierta del arca y vio que la tierra se estaba secando. 2 meses después, la tierra estuvo suficientemente seca para que Noé, su familia y los animales pudieran salir del arca.
Aquí cuando hacen las cuentas nos dicen que ellos estuvieron dentro del arca por 370 días.
Mm-hmm. So about 370 days were they in the ark, floating over the waters, doing the whole thing. And then they came down, and it was dry enough for them to go out with the animals and everything.
¿Todo un año?
Yep.
Un año y
And,
poco.
and a little bit more than a year as well, yes. Most likely. Noah built an altar to the Lord and made sacrifices to God.
Noé construyó un altar al Señor e hizo sacrificios a Dios.
God was pleased with the offering and promised never again to destroy all living creatures. As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease.
Dios se complació con la oferta y prometió no volver a destruir a todo ser viviente. Mientras la tierra permanezca, la siembra y la cosecha, frío y calor, verano e invierno, día y noche, no cesarán jamás.
God put a rainbow in the sky. God then told Noah, "This rainbow is the sign of my promise never to flood the whole earth again."
Dios puso un arco iris en el cielo. Entonces le dijo Dios a Noé: Este arco iris es el signo de mi promesa de no volver a inundar toda la tierra de nuevo.
That's it. story that we all kind of know, but there's some interesting things in there. I was not aware of the scale of. We were talking about the length of the ark, and there's a real ark that they recreated as a boat, not as a box. But anyway, the dimensions are pretty much the same, and it says here 450 feet. So that's how many did you say that
A
was?
football field is 100 yards. So let's see, 100 yards is what, 300 feet. So I said it wrong a while ago. So it would be like 1.5 football fields,
1.5 football fields.
something like that.
So they
That's
used
close.
feet in olden times.
No, they used cubits. If you read the Bible in the original language, it will tell you cubits. They've already translated that
Into feet.
into feet and meters for the story. But a cubit is about 18 inches long.
Interesting. Wonder what that was
Now
based
there
on.
were 7 pairs of each clean animal.
Mhm.
That's all the stories you read about Noah and the ark. It always says 1 pair of each.
Yes, that's everybody thinks. Oh, they went 2 of each kind. Well, of the unclean, it was 2
Right.
of each kind. But of the clean animals, it was 7 pairs.
Oh yes, I was completely misunderstanding that part. I thought it meant 7 of each species, 7 pairs of each species of animals, and then 2 pairs of each unclean species, which doesn't make sense at all. So they had a lot of animals in there.
There was a
Wow.
lot of
What
animals.
is unclean and clean?
Well, in the olden days, especially for Jewish tradition, this kind of still exists, right? That's why they don't eat pork. But was this ordained by the law, or
This was part of the law of Moses. And for example, they talk about chewing the cud and parting the hoof and so on like that. So a cow is clean, but a pig is unclean because the cow chews the cud, but it has a cloven hoof, or it doesn't have a cloven hoof, whatever. I don't know those details of the anatomy.
Sure.
And the pig, on the other hand, doesn't chew the cud, but it has a similar kind of hoof. So the Jewish people knew this kind of thing in detail. But the animals that you normally would eat are usually clean, except for pig. Camel, I think, is not clean.
Yeah, they mentioned
So
some here:
I don't
owls,
know.
lizards, moles.
They gave you some ideas of
Yeah.
what some of the clean and unclean animals were. But yes, that was. And they could use the clean animals were frequently food for everyone to eat, because before then they never ate meat. It doesn't say it in this story, but after they got off of the ark, God said, I give you every animal to eat. I give you the animals to eat. Before that, they only ate plants. They were vegetarian. And after the flood, God gave them animals to eat. So the clean animals were good for sacrifice. They were good for eating. But also predators, like lions and so on, they will eat both clean and unclean, actually. But there needed to be more of the clean than the unclean animals. That's why.
I wonder if there was a recognition between clean and unclean before the flood.
I don't know if there was or not before people, but they didn't eat them. So the same kind of restrictions didn't. They did not eat animals before the flood. God gave them every plant before, but He did not give them. He gave them animal skins to make clothes.
They gave them
But it
dominion
doesn't say that
over
they-
the animals as well.
But he
Never
gave them domain, but He did not give them
to eat.
They did not eat animals, apparently. But
Mhm.
after the flood, they did.
That's what it seems like. But surely they must have known, because it specifies 2 of each unclean.
Well, it also
Yes.
said God sent the animals to them. So it's not like a lot of people think, well, Noah had to go out and round them up. No, God sent the animals to them.
Yeah, in that movie we were talking about
Mhm.
the animals just starting to come
an insomnia, I don't know how to read it.
That's
You know,
all
there's
right.
another verse that I think is very worthwhile to talk about, and that's in 1 Peter 3:21. And actually, it even starts before that. Let's see if I can find this real quick to read
Say
it.
that again? Which?
It's 1 Peter 3, and we'll actually start a little bit earlier than verse 21. Let's start at verse 20. And it starts out talking about the disobedient people. When once the long suffering of God waited, so he waited during the days of Noah while the ark was preparing. So these people, it says that they were wicked and I'm sure they had all kinds of sins, but the biggest one that's emphasized in Genesis is violence. That was the one that was emphasized in their various sins, that they were violent. But they had a chance to change, because it said God waited in the days of Noah while the ark was preparing, wherein few, that is 8 souls, were saved by water. The like figure whereunto even baptism does also now save us, not the putting away of the filth of the flesh, but the answer of a good conscience toward God by the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So that's a very good understanding. You know, we've talked in other classes about the Old Testament being a shadow of Christ and the coming and
With
of
its
the new law.
prophecies and yes.
This one is an example of that. The water destroyed the wicked, but it saved the good because they were raised above it in the ark.
Man, in all of these stories that we look through in the Old Testament, you can kind of get a little parallel. Even with Cain and Abel, and we saw the parallel, the first prophecy of Christ, right, with Adam and Eve, and now we're seeing one with the flood. It's interesting.
Can I read in Spanish?
Yeah.
Primero de Pedro 3, verso 20 en adelante. Los que en otro tiempo desobedecieron, cuando una vez esperaba la paciencia de Dios en los días de Noé, mientras se preparaba el arca, en la cual pocas personas, es decir, 8, fueron salvadas por agua. El bautismo que corresponde a esto ahora nos salva, no quitando las inmundicias de la carne, sino como la aspiración de una buena conciencia hacia Dios por la resurrección de Jesucristo. También encontré el verso que habla de que fue entregado a Noé y sus hijos todos los animales. Está en Génesis 9.
So that verse talking about how God gave them all the brought all the animals to the ark is in Genesis chapter
9. Verse 3.
3.
Génesis capítulo 9, verso 3 dice: todo lo que se mueve y vive os será para mantenimiento, así como las legumbres y plantas verdes os lo he dado todo. Voy a leer en inglés también.
Thank you.
So, ¿cuántos días estuvieron en el arca?
En el arca fue 370 más o menos.
En
Eso
inglés.
Días.
Días, sí.
Genesis 9:3. Everything that lives and moves about will be food for you. Just as I gave you the green plants, I now give you everything. Genesis 9:3. After they left the ark.
So that's what Irene was talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they were vegetarian. Who would have known?
Si estuvieron 370 días, también tiene que haber sido más gente y más animales, ¿no? Porque pasó más de un año.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they multiplied in the ark, right?
The animals maybe, but but Irene has the theory they were immature. Maybe.
Oh, they were possibly immature.
Oh,
Yeah.
Or just about to mature. That's just a
Yes.
theory, that they were just at that point during the year they were in the ark. That way it required less food, they would not be quite as big. And-
don't multiply.
But as soon as they came off the ark, they were probably ready to give those babies right then, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think we'll ever really know. I don't think it's explicitly stated.
Right.
But interesting thought experiment. What else we got? We got a new arrival. Hey.
Yay! Thank you.
I think that's basically it. Lots of interesting details in the story of Noah, even though it's commonly talked about. Thank you very much for listening in.